All right, is David Drake there? David.
Yes, I'm here, Marty.
Perfect. So I want to introduce David. David's actually someone I've known for about 20 years, and I've seen his fantastic climb as a business person, incredibly entrepreneurial, very investment savvy, has a global network of family offices that he works with. Besides the fact that you speak lots of languages and throw great parties. David, can you give some background? I mean, again, I've known you for 20 years. I can't give you enough appreciation. So tell us about where you are, what you've done, and where you're going.
So thank you for that, Marty. Thanks for putting this together. It's been impressive to see what you created over the last 20 years. It's brilliant. And the economic outlook from the previous panel is very helpful, and I appreciate that from everybody. So first of all, I'm born and raised in Stockholm, Sweden. This is a picture of Stockholm archipelago that my sister took a couple of weeks ago. Figured I'd put that in the background. And you might have seen a different background earlier. That was from a restaurant with the family I went to. But as Marty mentioned, I have invested and been involved with over 500 startups. And one of the holding companies called the Soul Loft, the media company, have changed the focus of our investments to later stage investments, B and C investments, and more of private equity, capital markets, real estate. I own real estate in Midtown Manhattan. I'm buying more real estate in Midtown Manhattan during COVID. I think this could be a good year for buying real estate. And obviously, we're also buying real estate in Sunbelt, Class B, C value add strategies. But as far as comes to alternatives that everybody spoke about, I've been very big in crypto for many years. And that goes back to the Jobs Act. So in 2010-11, one of my holding companies was producing conferences about the Jobs Act the year before it even existed. So I ended up lobbying the Hill and Congress, as well, having set up the first meeting in history with SEC and FINRA about some of the exemptions under the 7 underlying laws of the Jobs Act in April 2012. And those allowed us to do advertising and marketing online. Fast forward, obviously, we are a big into crypto. I have changed those strategies as well. I'm an LP in hedge funds, and I like to do long to medium term investments in liquid companies, not as much equity or getting involved in the early stage companies getting into blockchain or crypto. And we've had great success. I mean, just look at Bitcoin went up to 41,500 last week and then crashed down to 31,500 yesterday. And it's not for the lighthearted, but we've seen that in 24 hours, more than several dozen times the last 4 years. But if people got in, at that rate for Bitcoin, they're obviously going to have, tremendous fare getting into the space. So as to some of the speakers earlier, yes, it's going to be very volatile this year. It'll be very volatile, and I've been waiting for Bitcoin to kind of level off so we can start seeing the altcoins taking off. And, I want to make sure, I talk about the outlook this year. Obviously, with the new administration, we had discussed it last year in the investment committee and my partners in other businesses that, should the new administration come in with Biden, I think he's going to be pushing heavily for green deals. And we have consequently identified a couple green infrastructure project and credit project that we want to invest in. But historically, when it comes to our investment strategy, I have focused more and more on non-correlated businesses and investments, credit funds, but also life settlements. We've done the due diligence on a couple of life settlements originators. We're aiming for 20% IRR on those investments that I'm making. And to me, that's truly uncorrelated and a good hedge against other investments that we're making. As far as other things we're looking to do is, I've always focused on working with international family offices. As a family office, having created my money in the US, in New York specifically, from real estate and tech, I've always wanted to work with foreign family offices and institutions the last 20 years. And we continue to do so. And we're taking some of the investments we made from Eastern Europe and Ukraine, construction in Black Earth, to the Hong Kong board and getting them listed there, as well as taking other investments around the world that we want to get listed in the US. Some of our colleagues have been running M&A for Goldman Sachs and Bankers Trust for the last 30 years. So we have a really strong team to help companies get financed and go on NASDAQ in New York. As far as those micro caps we would like to invest in on the stock side, obviously we'd like to go into LP positions. But on the passion side of what I'm really passionate about has to do with media. And I'm going to show you what my dad just did. Can I share the screen here? I think I can share the screen here. And let me know, Marty, if you can see this. Okay. My dad became a world champion in a computer game called Counter-Strike. At age 78, he's the world's oldest world champion of an esport. Enjoy this little. Can you guys see this? Marty, can we hear it?
Right now, I don't see it. You need to hit the share screen button, and then
okay.
You need to toggle over to that window where it's showing, so that way everybody can see it. So when you do share screen, you share screen, and then
got it. There we go. Screen, okay.
There you go. It says you started screen sharing.
Okay, wherever YouTube. Let's see if we can see this one. Is that crooked?
No, it looks great. So this is your
dad. Yeah, he became a world champion 2 years ago. And I was like, excuse me? You became what?
Is this like age specific, or is this like he beat all the 19-year-olds?
It was age specific. He got recruited. So, Dad was getting, he's retired, living in Stockholm with my mom, and my sister decided to register them to become extras on movies and TV shows. And that's exactly what he did. He ended up, getting recruited by Lenovo to play on their senior citizen team. And the world championship for the first and only time in history was in 2019. His team won, and he was the oldest player. So we decided to take, after working with him and managing him for the last year, to create a streaming service around him with blockchain and crypto, by the way. So what we're doing is we're putting on Twitch, we're taking my TV shows, I have Fox and Bloomberg shows, as well as movies being made. The producer from Police Academy is doing a movie with me, inspired by Dad. And there's a documentary coming out on Dad for an hour on Amazon Prime, January 31st. And I'm making another documentary about him on Netflix because, he's bridging old and young, which is cool. His hands don't hurt anymore because he used to have arthritis, and he's now more nimble. And he's also allowing people stuck at home to socially interact through distances by playing games. And more so, he's bonding and healing people's broken families from distances. So there's a lot of impact story behind him being an inspiration. So what we're doing now is he's playing Twitch 3 hours a day, and we're putting it on YouTube TV. We're doing Theta, which is a decentralized blockchain platform, top 20 actually in the world, that actually allows him to stream and earn and get loyalty points, and everything's integrated, so you can do 3D special issue NFTs, which is non-fungible tokens, which can be sold and have a certain value. And we're creating a little ecosystem around him to create something interesting called the OG League, which will be the original gangster league. People over 50 that like to play esport or games can actually come together, learn, and create leagues around the globe. So I'm taking my media assets and I'm taking my social media assets and TV shows and movies and creating this ecosystem for a league to partner up with all the different companies around the world. So that's my passion project. And, I usually don't start businesses, but this one just made sense because I have so many supporting assets around it. So that's become one of the passions of, 2021 for me. But, you guys can look it up, Die Hard Birdie, anywhere you want, and obviously reach out. But it has a strong message of, I've been listening to a lot of people, having top 3 regrets before they pass away. And the top 3 has always been, they wish to spend more time with friends and loved ones. So I think that's the message that he wants to break people's thought process, that esport is also, the only growing sport in the world. And, my age group, mainly be thinking about it as, oh, it's a game, not serious, but it has become a real industry. And, the teams in the US are actually building stadiums. So for everybody listening, it's, it becomes a real estate play. They're using the esport industry to increase value around the stadium and the peripheral land around that stadium. So that's very familiar to my business.
Hey,
I
David,
like
I just want to jump in here for 1 second. So you're talking about esports, and we're going to cover that general a little bit tomorrow. But the information I hear about esports is that there is an event every day in the United States of esports that sells out a stadium the size of Madison Square Garden. At least this is pre-COVID.
yes,
So this is amazing.
4,000. It's 4,000 a year pre-COVID.
Just keep on
And
going. Sorry about that. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah, it was tremendous. 1.5, billion dollars in purses to be won, and it was a big, huge industry. So I'm very optimistic about esport and gaming. I mean, we did the research and we found that 75 billion hours were spent on streaming, not necessarily gaming only, but streaming, which has the raw authenticity because you're getting into the living room with somebody else, and it's not scripted, and the young audience is not going to linear TV. So linear TV and cable are like, well, what are we going to do? And we're a little more, in the US, they have issues with weapons and guns and shooting. So a lot of these games are too violent for a lot of these networks to be able to air it. So eventually it'll come merge in, with linear TV, but that's 75 billion hours not on TV. And the audience just getting older and older on cable and TV. So, something's going to give. And there's going to be, a roll-up acquisition strategy down the road where I can see them acquiring these conferences and competitions and sports and the rights for it. Other spaces that we really enjoy looking to invest is obviously real estate. We own real estate off Park Avenue in Midtown. We're buying more properties in New York. I think it'd be interesting at 2021 because, New York is also a very democratic blue state. So there's a lot of rules coming up and being proposed to limit what the market rent can be on properties, which has, a lot of us in New York a little bit nervous. I'm not as pessimistic as others. I'm willing to acquire more properties there, but we obviously love, real estate in the Sun Belt to buy, Class B, C value add opportunities. And at the same time, a lot of our relationships, my relationships with other family offices co-investing with me are heavily from Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Asia, Central Asia and Asia. And we have an office presence in Seoul and Hong Kong. So we're getting to see opportunities where they're looking for diversification, having a very high valuation of the Chinese market, for instance, and we're looking for opportunities. So I'm seeing a lot more cross integration between Asia and the US in the future, as well as I was working with the U.S. Commerce Department. So we're having missions to talk about LP investment and LP investors look at opportunities, but also helping domestic funds.
Hey, David, so the audience really was interested in finding out, how you hedge your risk, what's your approach to risk management. And I'm actually fascinated. I mean, you built up a really fantastic global investor network. How long did it take you to do that? What inspired you to do that? I mean, I know you kind of addressed it, great American deals, other people from other countries looking for it. But I mean, there was a lot of legwork involved.
Yeah, that took 20 years. Absolutely. And I, at one point I was having a lunch at my penthouse in Manhattan every single day for 3 years straight with family office friends of mine that I was going to co-invest with. So, one by one, it was built. And you're right. I didn't talk, Marty, about the loft. I had a 6-bedroom loft in Seoul, and we had a dinner cocktail party every night for literally 7 years. So I fed 11,000 people who weren't hungry. And they still come up to me and say, hey, that was such a great time. So that was the first decade of the 21st century. And that goodwill, built a network of people around the globe. So I can, when I go to Dubai or I go to the West Coast, I can bring 30 people together for a cocktail in 24 hours. I haven't done that recently, obviously, because of COVID. But that has become, my business networking globally to be able to get deals and deal flow through trusted parties and trusted people. And I've been able to get involved from fintech to banking to public markets, capital markets, pipes, and of course, a lot of early stage that we don't do anymore. We're helping the ones we've got involved with already. But yes, that loft was special because nobody else were having a cocktail party 7 days a week at their house, let alone have a house big enough that could fit that many people. So yeah, that goes back that. And and I got to live the wonderful New York life, right? I was on the board for the New York City Opera for several years, which I loved. And I was on the board advisory for the Washington Ballet. So I had the opportunity to give back to society. But Marty also refers to, we had a media company where I wrote about 500 articles for Forbes, Huffington Post, and Wall Street Journal over a period of 10 years about capital formation. The Jobs Act, post the Jobs Act, and the exemptions available out there to make it easier for entrepreneurs to raise capital and find capital. I mean, it's interesting because Europe now had $22 billion in venture capital investments last year, and the US has 122 billion. Huge difference. But 10 years ago, that was more like 6 billion and 32 billion. So both industries have grown, and the US has such an amazing infrastructure to help companies format, get capital, SBA loans, launch their business, and quickly and seamlessly compared to everywhere else in the world. They're just lacking that infrastructure and support from us and people here on this conference. I think it's valuable that we got to keep in mind, and that's why I always focused on foreign entities and foreign institutions and foreign families who always been delayed knowing what's happening in the U.S. because the lawyers had to figure out what's going on in the U.S. first. That goes back to my first article.
David, I mean, it's really great that you're praising the deregulatory environment of the U.S. But one of the things I want to raise is that, you see that there's kind of this joint fiat currency sort of inflation that's happening, or debasement, let's say. Do you think that creates great opportunities for you? Because I mean, you've been involved in crypto a lot. Real estate's a great hedge against currency debasement. You're kind of in that as well. And you're actually seeing that all over the world. I mean, I don't think it's ever happened that there's a coordinated currency debasement. I mean, everybody is debasing their currency, right? So, I mean, and you can say for whatever reason, but, from your worldview, what do you think about opportunities as a result of that?
Well, in parallel to your question, Marty, on inflationary pressure on the currencies, as like you said, it's happening all over the place. On the flip side, I have been looking at a more linguistic situation. I feel that certain markets are more inclusive and secluded from the rest of the world because of language barriers. So, LG Capital has a huge presence in Korea in the public markets.
Interesting.
And we're expanding into Japan now with an office there, which is actually going to be about esports and streaming media, targeting the Japanese market.
Yep.
Funny enough, we found a 78-year-old woman who plays Counter-Strike. Strangely enough, so we'll put that together. But I also see opportunities with countries like Korea and Japan, with languages a barrier, doing business with other markets that historically haven't done that, such as Korea and Ukraine. That's interesting. There's not many delegations that have gone from Korea to Ukraine, and we're very politically connected in Korea. So we've set up those meetings, and we're setting up those events between those countries. And of course, U.S. companies having a chance to partake in foreign opportunities such as those that can be publicly listed companies. But we're also involved in medical equipment. We like taking pharma companies public. We're taking from microcaps into NASDAQ. We've been doing that work for 20 years. But, on the currency side of things, I think that's going to be my answer to you, Marty.
Fantastic. Well, listen, David, thank you so much for your participation. We're really looking forward to you. I know that you're spending a lot of time in Texas these days. So we're looking forward to your participation at our Austin event, where I think we're going to have 50 to 100 people coming in just from California during the South by Southwest week on March 15th. And for people that were at our Austin event or viewed it before, it was really great. We'll definitely have a dinner party following the event. Looking forward to it. And again, David, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Marty.